Hello, hello, hello.
Hey everybody, welcome to day 3, where we're going to be talking about the connection between the digestive system and skin health. And we're also going to talk about the connection between the digestive system and sleep.
Sleep, yes. And specifically, we're talking about oregano and thyme essential oils. While the other essential oils that we talked about yesterday, the day before, with the clove, the frankincense, the myrrh, all of those also help the gut health, your gut microbiome, and your gut directly affects all of these things: weight loss, sleep, inflammation, and skin. And inflammation can be the problem with the inflammation can be kind of what causes the skin issues, and it's all kind of interconnected.
It's all really connected. And here's what's so interesting about the digestive system and the skin that people often don't realize. The type of cells that make up our skin, epidermal cells, are the same types of cells that make up the intestinal lining.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we're taught about the human body, it feels like everything is really separated, but the reality is that all of these systems are so tightly connected. You can have a direct interface between the food and your intestinal tract, that piece of food never actually touching your skin, but yet you can have a skin reaction within minutes for some people. And I have the perfect real life example for everybody on this call. You can see I have these 2 bright red irritated breakouts right here. This is because I ate a low quality chocolate that had dairy in it. And so ever since then, I had the chocolate at night, I woke up the next morning and these 2 guys popped up on my face. That's a great example of how I could take something into my digestive system and have it show up on my skin just hours later.
What about the burger?
And
burger and fries have nothing to do with it.
That too.
Burger and fries.
Burger and fries. We had a total, when was that?
Last night.
This got way worse last night.
Yeah.
So we're human too. Like, we're out there doing
sure.
our very, very best. You know, but the repercussions they're evident even in healthy bodies, okay? In fact, I realized after being in practice for so long, it's often the more imbalanced and unhealthy we are, the less connected we are to those symptoms coming up. And we don't always put 2 and 2 together. And so what's great about the oils that we're talking about today, especially the oregano oil, oregano helps to remove the bad bugs that could be contributing to the sensitivity in the gut. The reality is you should be able to eat a certain amount of bad foods, but not have a flare up. But most of us are just getting inundated and constantly damaging the health of the intestinal lining. And so we start to develop like food sensitivities against foods that we really shouldn't have sensitivities against. So I don't know, maybe you're at the age where you start to realize, like, God, I'm starting to develop all these food sensitivities that I used to not have.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that happens to so many people in their 30s and 40s nowadays, because most of us walking into our 30s and 40s, we have broken intestinal barriers. We have what's called leaky gut syndrome. And Evan actually found a study that shows why oregano is really helpful with this.
Yeah. So, I linked this study in the group that we have here. It's in a previous post, and it talks about oregano essential oil and how it improves the function of this mucosal lining or your gut barrier, right? And even in the study, it will even teach you a little bit about bacteria and about this balance that we're supposed to have, and we're not supposed to have no bacteria in our body.
No, we need that bacteria.
Or bacteria. Yes, or even inflammation. So we need a healthy dose of bacteria and inflammation to function, right? And oregano helps the barrier with its integrity, and like the barriers in our body.
It improves the integrity.
It improves the function of the integrity, right? So what the barrier is to do, it's supposed to be like a semi-permeable membrane where some things can get through, some things can't get through. With like a leaky gut situation or a total broken down barrier, then things are getting through that should not get through, and then that's when we're having some issues.
Yeah, we start to see things like skin issues pop up. It doesn't have to be acne. It can look like eczema. It can look like psoriasis. It can look like scaly skin.
Yeah.
All of these are signs that leaky gut needs to be addressed.
Right.
So oregano oil is a beautiful oil to bring in. Now, just a note, because we include oregano oil in our ParaCleanse formula, this is why we recommend that you cycle on and off when you're doing the formula. Oregano is recommended to take in cycles. You know, a lot of like blogs and stuff say 10 days, but with the doTERRA oregano, you could really take it for like 14 to 21 days, as long as you're sticking to, you know, 1 to 2 drops per dose. But oregano will really work best when you cycle on and off, whether you're doing that for a 10-day period, a 14-day cycle, or a 21-day cycle. Okay, so that's oregano. And then one other thing I just want to say, and I was debating whether or not to share these articles in this group, but you'll notice that the title of our blend is called the ParaCleanse formula. That we are alluding to parasites. I was debating on whether or not to share some of the articles that really just do a great job explaining this to people, but parasite infestation in the digestive system is very common. It's nothing to freak out about. You don't have to have this full-blown acute attack of a parasite infection. That would be on the totally one side of the spectrum. We're talking about parasites that can just hang out like Cryptosporidium, hang out in your intestinal tract for years and just silently wreak havoc. You know, Evan has dealt on and off with eczema flare-ups. When we started, he came back from the Philippines, he was in like a huge flare-up from stress and travel and eating out and all that stuff. We put him on the ParaCleanse formula because he wanted to attack parasites that we just thought, you know, his gut's just not used to being exposed to the food in the different areas. Maybe there's some new parasites his immune system just isn't really familiar with dealing with. And so we gave him all these heavy anti-parasitic oils like oregano, like thyme, like clove. So the oregano is so great with going in and not just healing the gut, but also attacking bugs that don't belong.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about how thyme works with oregano?
Yeah. So I mean, in a second study that we share this study, and it talks about a bunch of different essential oils, and it talks about how they interact with acne, and with specifically like acne that has no longer
it's not responding to medication.
No longer responding to conventional medication. So you need natural medication to help with that, right? And so it checked a bunch of different essential oils, and the two most effective essential oils were oregano and thyme.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever been a teenager, or maybe you're a parent and you have a teenager who deals with acne, you take them to the doctor and they recommend two things. They recommend an antibiotic and they recommend an antibiotic face wash.
Right.
That is like so crazy to me, knowing about how important healthy microbes in the gut are for hormone balance at that age.
Right.
Like that is an age where you don't want to be throwing any barriers for healthy hormones, because those hormones are so integral in central nervous system development, in like personality development and sexual development. And then you throw antibiotics in the gut thinking there's no ramifications for that. That's so incorrect. In fact, what happens to kids, especially teenagers, when they're given antibiotics for acne in their 20s and 30s, they end up often with IBS, irritable bowel disease, Crohn's disease, like there's
emotional instability. They're a bit crazy.
Well, no, I mean, not necessarily, but your gut is really, really an important part of your hormones. And so instead, if you're in this place where, you have some flexibility and you don't have to go that route, you can try other things, why not bring in oregano and thyme and instead put that in the veggie cap? Instead of having the teen ingest that antibiotic, doing this instead to clean out and get to the root cause of the skin issue. If somebody's responding to antibiotics, it means that there's an imbalance in the gut, right? That's the whole point of the antibiotic. Why not go natural, where the body knows how to recalibrate?
And both of these have been used for years in teas, right? So you could just put the oregano with hot.
I would never recommend they do it.
No, these.
Oregano and tea?
Well, they do that in the Philippines.
I know, but our oregano, you guys, just to be clear, I know that that is something that's often done. People go out and buy oil of oregano, put it in hot water.
Or they crush the actual leaves.
Our oregano essential oil is so pure and so potent, you cannot do it in hot water. You'll burn your mouth.
Right.
So just do a drop in a veggie cap, okay? You
Right.
could do thyme tea if you wanted.
But you could do the oregano
Okay.
you could do thyme is a normal tea. I mean, especially,
I don't know how it tastes.
anything would taste okay if you add enough honey.
Yeah,
But
but not oregano.
yeah, but the oregano can be added as a food, as a spice, a food spice for Italian food, or I mean, just like one drop in a whole
Stew.
a whole bowl of spaghetti sauce or something, or you add one drop to olive oil and mix that around, and then put the olive oil onto the pizza, and you can do that, and that would help your gut. That would help the bacteria reach their balance, but also be just a food supplement.
Totally.
Yeah. And then the third thing that the third study that we added there was just talking about the relationship between the gut microbiome and and sleep, circadian rhythm, and in the study it's depression, right? So just emotional stability.
Yeah, I mean, so much of our neurotransmitters, over 90% of our neurotransmitters, like serotonin and dopamine, which if we're imbalanced in serotonin or dopamine, we can experience depression.
Mm-hmm.
Over 90% of those neurotransmitters are in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have inflammation as a result of imbalance between the good and the bad bacteria, guess what neurotransmitter gets eaten up by inflammation? Do you know, babe?
No.
Serotonin gets
Okay.
ravaged by inflammation.
Okay.
And so if you have imbalance in your gut and you have lots of inflammation, it's ravaging most of where most of the serotonin hangs out.
Mm.
And low serotonin is often connected to the symptoms of depression. And
Yeah, of
so
course.
this is not talking about a replacement for an antidepressant by any means. We're not
No,
saying
no,
that. But if you want to do something more holistic in addition to what your doctor is recommending, talk to him first and say, hey, I want to do a gut cleanse. Would that be okay? And chances are he's going to say yes. And you can bring in the essential oils and start cleaning out your gut and see what shifts.
Right.
I've seen so many people have major changes happen when we start to clean out the gut using oils, where they get to have these conversations with their doctor about switching things up, maybe over time not needing it. Of course, you have to work with your prescribing doctor before you make any changes there.
Definitely. So that is day 3
Oh,
of.
can we talk about sleep really quick?
Oh yeah.
Is
Go
that
ahead. Yeah.
So a couple things too about sleep I just want to mention. If you're somebody that wakes up in the middle of the night at like between 2 to 3 a.m., oftentimes it could be liver, but oftentimes that's associated with parasite issues.
Mm-hmm.
If you're somebody that deals with, and I'm just going to say it, if you have irritation around your anus, that could be parasites, especially at night. So I knew you weren't going to be able to keep a straight face. But that's true. I talk to people about this all the time in practice. Like, people come and I have to ask this question. And when they say yes, I say, that is parasites more often than not. Because parasites, they really they come out and they're like populating and moving around in the middle of the night. And so little kids often have pinworm. So this is a great example. Like, we acknowledge this is something that kids often have and they have to go to the doctor, take something for that.
Mm-hmm.
But as adults, you can end up with that as well. So it's just a good idea to acknowledge, am I waking up in the middle of the night? Do you deal with that irritation, that itchiness, or do you have, what's this called? TMJ.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, not TMJ, teeth grinding. Do you grind your teeth when you sleep? This is also a symptom, a sign of parasite imbalance in your body. Okay, so that oregano and that thyme, simple. All these things we're talking about, you guys, super simple approach to supporting the root cause that could be throwing off your skin, that could be throwing off your sleep. And one last benefit to thyme, and we'll get into this a little bit more tomorrow, but thyme also has been shown to support healthy progesterone levels. And if we're low in progesterone, which almost always happens when we're stressed out, it makes it so we can't go to sleep. So you actually need good amounts of progesterone to sleep. and thyme has been shown to support healthy progesterone.
So another thing that has to do with sleep is blood sugar, and that we could talk about with our bonus oil. We'll talk about our bonus oil tomorrow. We'll spend the whole day on our bonus oil because that sugar is a definite issue.
Yeah, for a lot of people. So tomorrow, yes, absolutely, Alexis. Everything that we're talking about is meant to be taken in a capsule. We'll also share with you how you can actually also do in a 10 ml roller bottle. You could do 20 drops each and then dilute the rest of the roller bottle with fractionated coconut oil and roll it on your belly.
Here's an example.
Obviously, yeah, this is what a 10 ml roller bottle looks like. You would do 20 drops each of the oils that we've talked about so far. And then roll it on the belly. But that's not going to be as potent as it would be if you were going to do it in a veggie cap. But, you know, if that's what works for you, that's great place to start.
Mm-hmm. So that is day 3 of our gut masterclass week.
Tomorrow's going to be stellar. We're talking about stuff we haven't talked about. We're going deep, 45 minutes. Like, definitely try to tune in live. The recording will be shared.
Right, so 45 minutes to 1 hour. Some of us go long sometimes. So I would go 45. You add an extra 15.
I love these experiences because it gives me a chance to engage with a lot of people that I've been talking to on Facebook, chatting with on Instagram. I just want to give all the info that I can't give in a chat because I just think this is such a cool thing about having a business online is we can engage in this deep way on webinars. And we have some really cool freebies that we're giving away tomorrow. So stay tuned.
Yeah, so
it's gonna be awesome.
Tomorrow is the whole class. We're gonna lay down all of it, but also we're doing this class plus our male hormones class live in person in the Philippines. So we have classes in Makati, Cebu, and Davao. If you want any information on any of those, comment. We'll put it in the link. We'll also maybe put up
we'll put up a link
comment.
We'll put up a link specifically to register. So Evan's going to be in the Philippines,
Yeah.
Cebu, Davao, Makati,
Siargao.
Siargao, stellar classes. He is not teaching introduction to essential oils. He's doing hot topic live classes, and it's going to be awesome. So definitely, if you're in the Philippines, make it to those classes if you can.
Yep, and we'll put a link to register when you ask for it.
All right, you guys, have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.